Hey, it's Steve Cochran. Welcome to Live from my office. We'll get started with the show itself in just a moment here. But first, it is primary season, and my intention here is to educate you on the primary in the best possible way. Maybe even make it fun. Because the primary season is very important. But we'll get to all that. We'll get to your excuses. We'll get to the research on figuring out who you're going to vote for. Primary season starts as soon as March 3rd. Sponsored by our pal Woody and Woody Buick. You know, I've always through the years promoted what I believe in and what I spend my money on. And I would estimate conservatively that my family, we've probably bought a dozen cars from Woody. He's a friend, but I wouldn't be throwing money around with a friend to the tune of a dozen cars unless he was getting it done. And he does every day. Loyalty matters. His employees are loyal. He's got a ton of 20, 25, 30-year employees, and that always says something about a business as well. But service is really what it comes down to as well. Sale and service. He makes the sale easy. He's got folks that aren't going to keep you all day, and you're going to be able to get through it and get the best price you can. And as I said, the service, I mean, that's a deal for me because most cars are built now to last almost forever, but you got to bring them in for service, and they have a wonderful service operation. And they tell you the truth about how long it's going to take and the cost. They're really getting it done at Woody. Now, look, you got your Carvana and others like it. I don't want to knock Carvana because I've never bought a car from them and I probably never will. But I don't get it because you don't get the test drive. It's a higher price. The registration and title problems are epic if you look at some of the reviews online. Same thing with customer service issues, trying to get those resolved as well. And sometimes these cars have hidden damages. Again, I'm not speaking of Carvana specifically. I'm not speaking of anyone specifically other than I don't know how you buy a car online. It's just not my deal. Now you may be saying, okay, grandpa, old guy doesn't get it. Well, okay, fine. But if you're not going to Woody, you're wasting time and you ought to see what these new Buicks and GMCs are all about. I know whenever I get into my SUV, I feel better about myself, and I feel like I'm more of a man. I was waiting for some heckles. It's Woody Buick, and, listen, enough from me. Why don't I have Woody tell you a little bit about Woody? Woody?
Woody here. Why Woody, you ask? Chicagoland's top-selling Buick GMC dealer with the largest Buick GMC inventory in stock. Over 1,000 of the hot new Buick and GMCs to choose from. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, and see for yourself. Easy as 1, 2, 3. Click, shop, and drive home today. No shortage at Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee. Woody needs your trade-in today. Hurry for best selection at year-end. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we are professional grade.
Thank you, Woody and Woody Buick. Let's get to the show. Welcome again to Live from my office. And I'll explain the Buffalo Bills hat in just a second, if you will. Bear me a moment of your time here. But first, we've been doing the phrase that pays with our good friends at Apt Electronics and Appliances, another sponsor of the program here. And we'll do it again today. Today is going to be all about the primaries. So I know it's hard to write sarcasm, but in your best sarcastic text, all you need to do to win one of these, this is an Apt gift card. Let me show you. $50 Apt gift card. I got a bunch of these. Wait till Apt finds out. And I'll send this to you. And all you have to do is send me the phrase that pays to prove that you're listening. You send it to thecochranshow@gmail.com or any of the other associated ways you can contact this podcast. And the deal is this. The phrase that you have to include along with your home mailing address is, let's do the sarcasm. Oh, Steve, tell me more. All right, that's easy. Oh, Steve, tell me more, because I'm about to. Put that in an email to me at thecochranshow@gmail.com with your home mailing address. And as long as supplies last, I will send you an Apt gift card. I've been sending out a bunch of those. All right, so as I said, it's primary season. And this stuff is important. Everything you need to know about primaries, that's what I'm going to talk to you about. It's more of a low-tech situation today as far as special effects go. I know you've come to expect Lucasfilm-like effects from me. But today, We're going with this. This is an old school dry erase board. This is a Buffalo Bills hat. I was thinking the other day, boy, we could really use Tim Russert. Now, you got to be of a certain age, I'd say 40 or even 45 plus, to know who Tim Russert was and how big a deal he was. He was a head of politics coverage, if you will, at NBC forever. He's the longest serving host of Meet the Press. He did 17 years. My friend Chuck Todd, great at the job. Chuck did 9 years. Those two guys, we need them more than ever. Now, Chuck's podcast is available. You can go to the Chuck Toddcast. That's the Chuck Toddcast and see what Chuck's up to. But Tim died tragically way too young, and we miss him. He was known for a couple of things: his incredible sports fandom, his incredible devotion to his family and his son Luke, and his love of the Buffalo Bills. He was a Buffalo guy. I'm an upstate New York guy as well originally, and that's why I have this fancy Buffalo Bills hat. My brother sent this to me, and it's the greatest gift he could have given. You wait till this year. Not next year. You wait till this year. Now, why the dry erase board? If you remember Tim Russert, you remember this was part of his thing. The dry erase board is what Russert would use. Not a bunch of fancy graphics. He'd use this. So let's get started because, boys and girls, it's primary season. So the deal is this. It is a big deal, and it is necessary, and you do have to vote. We should replace all of Congress. Not all of it. That's not fair. There's 7 or 8 or 9 people elected to the House and Senate. They're pretty good, and they're doing their best. A couple of them appear on this show regularly. I'm speaking of Congressman Quigley, for instance. But the other 500 plus, no. I'm sorry. Check, please. It's time for you to leave. If I could find the flush handle in Washington that would make this a quicker process, I'd do it. But no, you and I have to be involved. We have to take the step of voting. That's why I'm here to talk about the primaries, because everybody goes, well, the general election, it's once a year. I can just do that, right? No, in fact, you can't. And Congress is the problem. We're not voting for a president here. The midterms coming up in November, and the primaries are to set up the midterms. This is about your congressional reps, your House members, and your Senate members. And I'll get to the research coming up in a little bit. And in that research, I will show you how easy it is to find out who you ought to vote for. And also, we'll talk a little bit about where to go to get your information as well. There's 5 or 6 sites that I count on when I vote, and I vote all the time. Well, not all the time. I only vote when there's elections, but I don't miss them. And I really hope you won't either. So, again, going back to the Russert dry erase board, let me give you a couple of numbers to consider here. And we'll continue with the process. All right. 75-25, okay? 75-25. You're saying, Steve, what does that mean? In recent polls, statistics, the best way we can do the math and get the numbers, it shows that 75% of Americans asked the question, what do you think of Congress? Think Congress is corrupt, useless. These are the words that come up. Overpaid, and only interested in themselves, various terms for that as well. The 25% are the 25% that people that think, well, no, they're doing okay. They're doing all right. I believe most of those people who added up into that 25%, I believe they were probably mothers of reps and Senate members as well. Selfish, arrogant, and corrupt. Can you imagine holding your job if that was your performance review, say? 25% approve. Now, the Republican Senate is the worst of the worst. The Republican Senate are the people that are supposed to be the ultimate guard walls here. The House, well, it's tough to control 435 opinions, especially those folks who now say out loud what they would only say quietly in the past, and that is, it's all about getting reelected. Everybody's afraid of Trump. We'll get to why in a bit. But the Senate is where this could stop, and the Senate says nothing. Just absolute cowards. Off the record, they'll tell you they think Trump's a fool. They'll tell you almost to a man or a woman that they can't stand him. On the record, with very few exceptions. I understand there's been some pushback lately, but with very few exceptions, on the record, they'll tell you he's great. It's just Trump talking like Trump does. The media is the fault of all of this. The Democrats are the fault of all of this. The Republicans in the Senate, it's the worst case of malpractice politically that I've ever seen in my lifetime. Now, as I said, there's some pushing back because it is midterms year. And because of that, these folks do want to get elected. They want to keep their cushy jobs. So why would they sell out? Well, it could be one of three reasons as far as I'm concerned. Ego, of course. Influence. You like to have the influence. You like to be able to go over to Georgetown and get yourself a table at a steakhouse at a moment's notice. And the money's not bad. So let me get to the average take and perks, if you don't mind. You may want to make a note of this. The average take and perks for a member of the House or the Senate. They both get paid the same. The House is $174,000 in base salary, the Senate as well. The House has elections every 2 years, so the moment you're elected, you start fundraising for the next election, and that's not an exaggeration. The Senate, of course, has 6-year terms. Party leaders like the whip, the House whip or the Senate whip, these are the people, they don't actually have a whip. You know, in their personal lives, anything's possible. But they're the people that try to whip up votes for their side. And they count the votes so they can take it back to the head of the Senate or the Speaker of the House and tell them the numbers where they're at. Those party leaders make $193,400 a year. The Speaker of the House, Mike the Weasel Johnson, Mike has $223,500 coming to him every year. He can afford a lot of Trump knee pads with that. $223,500 is his salary. But here's where it gets interesting. The staff budget for these folks, the salaries, the travel, the office supplies, the paper clips and the Post-it notes, it's about $1 million a year in the House for new members. It's anywhere from $3 to $5 million in the Senate, depending on how long you've been there, and various other calculations. That $1 million in the House won't cover it. I guarantee you that even the newest members are getting more than that. They get $250 a night in lodging when the House or Senate is in session. Now you might be saying, well, you can't really get much of a hotel room in Washington for $250, but it's a start. And most of them are able to cut deals as well. That $250 a night that they can claim adds up to a benefit of about $34,000 a year. So now that 174 is suddenly 208. That 223 is suddenly about 250. And the money goes up from there. There's frat houses where the members of the House in particular tend to stay together. Now, most of these guys are ancient. So frat house is a bit of a compliment that they don't deserve. You know, they're fighting over the remote before Wheel of Fortune comes on. But check out the perks as well. Free health insurance, a lifetime pension starting at the age of 62, a 401k with a 5% government match, free parking, a free gym in D.C. as well. As I point out in my Substack, if we're giving them free gym, shouldn't we all be able to line up and find our reps and pelt them with dodgeballs? Right there in the free gym. Free food in the Capitol dining rooms. So if it's a bad weather day or they don't want to go out, they don't have to go out. They don't have to. And also $80 a day per diem in food costs. These are all perks. How about 6 months vacation? Now, I know it's technically not vacation. They're back in their districts. But 6 months PTO. That's about the number. And this is one of my favorites. Limited criminal immunity. Limited criminal immunity for the House and the Senate was originally designed to make sure that anything they said in the process of their jobs would be considered free speech, and they couldn't be found guilty of any crime related to it. Several senators and House members have tested limited criminal immunity on other things they've done that actually do involve breaking the law. So let's do this again. Let me go back to the whiteboard, the Tim Russert whiteboard, because I want to show you a couple other numbers. If you add all the perks up, and if you add all of the benefits up, along with the cash, the salary that I talked about. So let's do this. It's this, and then it is somewhere in the neighborhood of, if I could do some quick math, yeah, this should be it. So let me show you this. All in cash and prizes comes out to somewhere between $2 and $5 million every year. That's $2 to $5 million. And if you take 535 members of the House and Senate, You multiply, let's hit it in the middle. Let's say 3.5 million is the number. 3.5 million times 535 is just a little short of $2 billion that we are spending on Congress. I don't know about you. Do you feel like you're getting $2 billion in value out of Congress in 2026? If you do, it may be time for some medical help. So listen, that's why you vote. You got to vote to make change. You don't have the opportunity or the luxury to be a hobby voter. What's a hobby voter? A hobby voter is someone that votes in the primaries, maybe, but always in the important generals. You vote in the midterms and for president. Not good enough. It's like being a hobby Christian. You go at Easter and Christmas. God knows. I'm just telling you. So you have to be there. Turnout matters because turnout can actually eliminate some of the blackmail that goes on. I'll give you an example. I'm outside of Chicago in Illinois. And in Illinois, midterms turnout about 25%. The last mayoral election in Chicago had less than 20% in the first count. And I think that held. If it may have nudged over 20. We now have a mayor in Chicago, Brandon Johnson, who polls at about 6% approval rate. Occasionally, he'll nose up to about 10% in approval rate. Well below that of, say, Nausea. Nausea actually polls higher. And this year, with Senator Durbin retiring, there's a hot Senate race here. And if everything goes right, if the weather's good, Illinois political parties say we could get to 35%. That's good. That's embarrassing. Yeah. A little more primary history, if I could. This isn't new. This all started back in the early 19th century, I believe 1804. And everything about politics is about the states keeping their power. This is why you could never have a conspiracy on the scope of what it would take to have fixed the 2020 election. Donald Trump is lying. Donald Trump is delusional. Because every state has Republicans and Democrats involved in the process. And there's no way that you could have a secret as big as fixing an election without it getting out. There's just no way. It's impossible. It's common sense, or at least it should be. And I'm telling you, it's not. It didn't happen, and it's not going to happen. But the state's power thing is a big deal because there's other ways we could vote that could increase turnout. Have you heard of ranked choice voting? Here's how ranked choice voting works. Each of the candidates involved, once some of the just in it for the attention go away, each of those candidates gets assigned a number, let's say 1 through 5. And then you go in to vote and you would see all 5 of them on the ballot. You would assign a number 1 through 5 on those candidates. And the candidate who accrues the highest point value of 1 through 5 after you stack your candidates and everybody has added up, if that candidate's over 51%, they win. And if you don't get to 51%, you go to a second round, a third round, until it's done. That's the one people seem to talk about the most and the one that could get adopted. There's another thing called range voting. Range voting is just assigning a number of 1 through 10 for your candidate. So you see the candidate you want to vote for, of the 2 that are likely on the ballot, you give them a number. They're a 5, they're a 7, they're a whatever. The highest, again, wins at 51% or more. This one's kind of fun. There's a thing called approval voting. This is sort of red light, green light, and swipe right, because this is kind of middle school popularity. Approval voting means you either give a candidate a red light or a green light. Red light, you're out. Green light, you're in. Eventually, a green lighter gets 51% or more, and they're in. But the easiest answer here is online voting. Online voting would eliminate the excuses. You say you're too lazy to vote. You have all the excuses. You couldn't get a babysitter. Your car broke down. Your vote doesn't matter. It's all bullshit. And if you truly care about this country and the mess we're in and how to get out of it, this is something you have to take on. You have to vote in the primary. The online voting could take place on any given day. This is how you get the voting to the weekend even. Or you could do 2 days of online voting, whatever it takes. You would eliminate all of the nonsense, all the stuff both parties bring up to make things more difficult if you could online vote. And people say, well, it's too risky. Is it? Is it really too risky? Because when you think about it, what goes on online every day? It's not just porn. Online every day. It's not just Facebook and it's not just idiotic social posts. No. Every penny around the world is online. Every single day, every dollar gets transferred online. Now, you may be saying, listen, the money I print in the basement, that's not online. I can't speak to what your habits are. But this is a true figure, estimated, but by the best financial minds in the world, every single day around the globe, $20 billion is moved. $20 billion. 20 billion, I'm being told, is incorrect. Well, I should change that then. It's not 20 billion? Well, this makes my argument even stronger because every single day, $20 trillion. $20 trillion is moved. I think that might say trillion. You get the idea. $20 trillion a day. So you're telling me we can keep the money secure, but we can't secure a vote? It's nonsense. It's bullshit. And again, it's completely to keep the states in power. Speaking of the states, here's how it works. All 50 states have some form of primaries. 47 have the traditional primaries, which works like a general election vote. 3 states have caucuses. We think of Iowa when we think of the caucuses, but basically the caucuses are people get into rooms in a different group. There might be a room for, I'm trying to think of a candidate here. Well, I'll give you an Illinois candidate that you may have heard of, Juliana Stratton. She was the lieutenant governor here, and she's gotten a lot of attention in the last couple of days for a commercial that she's running where she has a bunch of people say, fuck Trump. Now, you can talk all day about whether or not that makes sense. Personally, I think it's stupid. But Juliana Stratton, she would have a room, the Juliana Stratton room, and with a caucus, if you wanted to support her, you go in that room. And then a vote would be taken in that room, and the candidates with the most popularity in these various rooms would eventually move forward. Maybe that's why we only have 3 of those, and we do the general election. Each state's winners move on to the fall finals. The fall finals, of course, being the general election. Now, here's where the low turnout comes in. The far right and the far left always show up to vote. But those in the middle who don't show up to vote, you are ceding your power to the far right and the far left. That makes each vote they cast much, much bigger. So if you've ever been one of those people that have been standing in line in November and you go, how do we end up with these 2 numbnuts? Well, it's because you didn't vote in the primary. The system sucks, but it's the system we have. And it's a system you have to work within. If we were able to include, or I should say increase primary turnout to 50 or 60%, again, it's just such a ridiculously low number, 50 to 60%, you could eliminate the blackmail from Trump. You could eliminate really the blackmail from both parties, and you would mute the far right and the far left. Because what this comes down to with low turnout is you get the government they picked for you. When you don't show up, they choose for you. You get the government you deserve, but not the government you'd like to ask for. So I can, again, summarize this for you on the Tim Russert tribute board here on the whiteboard. By the way, snazzy hat, don't you think? Buffalo Bills. Wait till this year. Here's the deal with this, and I don't know how to make this any simpler. But this goes to really what the issue is, okay? It's going to take a second for me to write, talk amongst yourselves. The primary, okay. I'm hoping you can see this. And the general, this is a football analogy, but it's one everybody will understand whether you're a sports fan or not, okay? So here it goes. All told, the primary is the playoffs. That's how you get there, the playoffs. The general election is the Super Bowl. You got to win the playoffs to get to the Super Bowl, and the Super Bowl is a general election in November. I think that's a great sort of visual that can help you figure out exactly what we're talking about here. So, the general being the Super Bowl, you might be saying, well, Steve, I'm starting to understand some of this a little bit better, but you talk about threats and how it becomes a weapon. Explain. Well, you've heard Trump say he's going to primary a candidate. That's his threat. If anybody ever pisses him off, he will primary a candidate. He's, talk about holding grudges. Trump holds a grudge harder than he holds a quarter pounder with cheese. If he's been in any way aggrieved by someone, true or not, by the way, he'll hold on to that like a fourth grader on the playground, and that's an insult to fourth graders. His move is to primary said opponent. He did it to a sitting senator in Louisiana recently, and he doesn't know the people that he ends up supporting. He just wants to make sure he gets his revenge. So, for instance, let's say I am the incumbent, and I'm a popular senator or House member in my state, but I've pissed Trump off. It's hard to believe I've pissed Trump off. Trump would then primary me by having his party tell him a candidate to support. He then would go to his really poorly named Truth Social and interviews in various other places and say, the incumbent, Steve, is an asshole, and you need to vote for X. X would be this person who he doesn't know. He has no idea if they're going to be good at the job. And he would insist that the party spend a bunch of money supporting the candidate that he is now supporting. He'll endorse that candidate. He'll flood their campaign with money. He doesn't care if it helps his party or the country or not. He just wants to punish someone. That's what primarying a candidate means. So why are all these people afraid of Trump? Well, if you criticize him and you get primaried, you might lose your cushy job. He's an embarrassment. And look, this idea of increasing turnout and actually getting involved in voting is just the beginning, but it starts change. Let's talk about the thing everybody's talking about for a second, the pedophiles. The Epstein files, the pedophiles. If you are as pissed off about this as the majority of the country is, majority of the world is, you would say, I want an elected representative who is going to do something about it, who's going to out these perverts, these creeps, these criminals, all the way to the White House, who have been involved in this. At the bare minimum, that's what these women who are little girls deserve. So what if we were to do this? Think about this for a second. That's just you and me talking. What if we name the Epstein files after Trump? Not to get him, but to placate his ego. So a friend of mine brought this up. I thought it was a brilliant idea. Thank you, Craig. But the idea is you would call it the Trump-Epstein files, or the Trumpstein files, if you will. I have a feeling he would really let his guard down and we'd be able to see a lot more than we've seen now. So here's the deal. You need to turn off the Real Housewives, stop playing Candy Crush or Subway Surfers, and do a little research. How do you do the research? This is important stuff now. I don't know who to vote for, Steve. All I see is these commercials, and when they come on, I turn them off. I get it. The commercials are annoying, and as you get closer to your primary, and again, they all start on March 3rd, you're going to see more and more of these commercials, not less. You're going to see them all the time. And there's a thing we did in broadcasting forever, and it still goes on, and that is called protection, where if you had a particular commercial for a category, let's say you were a plumber, there wouldn't be another plumber commercial that would come on after it. There'd have to be a space previously agreed on or a policy that had been accepted that said there wouldn't be another plumber commercial for maybe 10 minutes, or if it had to be in the same break, at the end of the commercial set, not at the beginning. So I bring this all up to tell you this. There are ways for you to get that information and get it easily and get it quickly. Your local news is a big part of this. Your local news is where you can find out about your local candidates. And that's the other thing you got to remember about this primary that's coming up. To get to the Super Bowl this fall, you want the best candidates you could possibly have. Well, to do that, you've got to know who you're going to vote for. So you go in, and it's not the Irish name because you're Irish. Or it's not a lady or a man because you'd only vote for a lady or a man. Or it's certainly, I hope at this point, not just a straight party vote for you. Because if it is, you've already missed the point. You need to go in with a little bit of ammunition. And I promise you when I tell you this, the sites that I lay out, they'll be in the show notes. They're also on my Substack, which I'll tell you about coming up. But I'll just give you a couple of them right here. These sites can help you figure out who to vote for in less than 10 minutes. You don't have to be a nut for politics. You just go in, follow the prompts, put in your information, and figure out who your candidates are. The first one I'm talking about is Ballotpedia. Ballotpedia. Ballotpedia.org. They'll give you a sample ballot for your primary when you get close to it. Another one's 270 to win. That's what I tried to write there. 270 to win. Look, I'm not Tim Russert. He was good at it. 270towin.com. 270 to win. You go there on the cover page and you can get yourself the primary calendar and find out all over the country where these primary or when these primaries are going to go, what dates are going to go, obviously including your own. Because if you really want to get involved, a good thing to do is to forward the Substack that I wrote, which has all this information, or this podcast. And when you do that, tell them, just watch it. It's interesting. And this guy, Steve, he's not that interesting usually, but he is now. And send it to them. Send them both if you like. Or pick up the phone. What a crazy idea. And call people you know in other states and say, just a reminder, your primary is coming up. I hope you're voting. I know it sounds like something you'd never do, but I mean, if not now, when? Some of the other sites, vote411.org, usa.gov, votesmart.org, ballotready.org. That's not Ballotpedia. It's called Ballot Ready. And Ballotpedia and 270 to win as well. Again, in the show notes, but also on my Substack. So here's your summary. You got to vote in the primary. That's how you negate the far right and the far left. That's how you stop the Trump blackmail that he's going to primary somebody. And the primaries then become legit. And you get to a point where you can go, may the best candidate win. What a crazy idea, don't you think? So read my piece on Substack, and you'll see maybe even greater detail, easily forwarded to your friends. Follow me there, subscribe there. The same with this, you know the drill, wherever you're watching or listening to your podcast. If you're watching it, you're on YouTube. Thank you for that. The YouTube channel is a Live from My Office channel. There also is Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the usual places. We're heard in 15 to 20 countries now, which is great. But of course, we're talking about an American problem, and Americans need to fix it. And that's you and me. So Substack is stevecochran.substack.com. stevecochran.substack.com. The primary story is there. And as I said, here, live from my office. It's just that simple. YouTube, yeah, definitely subscribe to the YouTube channel. And you can go to cochranshow.com and you can catch up on all of the podcasts we've done, now approaching, I believe, 600 since the pandemic. Thank you for all the great work that Chuck Todd still does in the Chuck Toddcast, that the great Tim Russert did. I salute you, Tim Russert, you Buffalonian, one of the all-time greats. And even though I can't watch Sunday morning TV anymore, or primetime news channels, it's the kind of thing where the information really did matter. So I hope you got something out of this. And if you have any questions, I hope you'll drop me a note. You can contact me always at thecochranshow@gmail.com. But I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you watched, and I'm glad you listened. Please share this with a friend. And before we go, I've got to say thanks to the great Ross Cochran, executive producer of this show. Nothing gets posted, nothing gets polished, nothing gets finished without the touch of Ross Cochran. And by the way, he's got a day job, and an important one. Hi to everybody at Good Shepherd Lutheran in Naperville, Illinois. But the deal is this, we couldn't do this without Apt Electronics. And don't forget the apt phrase that pays. Gee, Steve, tell me more. That's it. Put that in an email. Send it to me at thecochranshow@gmail.com. Gee, Steve, tell me more. Put that in email, thecochranshow@gmail.com. And the phrase that pays. And your home mailing address. That's the only way I'm going to be able to get you the beautiful app gift card like this one right here in this envelope. Am I forgetting anything? I mentioned stevecochran.substack.com. I think that's it, right? All right. And thanks, of course, to Woody Buick. Woody, any thoughts?
Woody here. Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee, Chicagoland's largest selection of GMC Sierras, Yukons, and Acadias. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville, Gurnee, and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. GMC, we're professional grade.
He's excited, and he wants you to come by. You don't have to buy a dozen cars like I have, but if you're in the market for a car, boy, I'm just telling you, you got to go to Woody Buick. Right, Woody?
Woody here. Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee. Chicagoland's largest selection of the hot new Buick and Vista and Encore GX. Search Woody Buick GMC, Naperville and Gurnee and see for yourself. Hope to see you soon, Woody. Buick, exceptional by design.
So that's going to do it for this edition of Live from My Office. I really, really, really hope you'll vote. I know. You get busy. I'm not being a smartass now. You do get busy. And things like this can slip your mind. And the primaries weren't as important in the past, but they've gotten more and more important. With these selfish pricks that we have in the House and the Senate, you got to stop them. You got to stop them. And you can post on social, that's fine. Doesn't hurt. I certainly hope when you do that, you're doing stuff that is true and stuff you truly believe in. But when it comes down to really making change, we have the power to do it. But the only way to do it is the old-fashioned way. So I ask it one more time, if you don't mind, please vote. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. I'm Steve Cochran, and this is Live from My Office.
Thank you for listening to Live from My Office, a service of Monkey Run Productions. All rights reserved. The podcast is hosted by Steve Cochran, and it's mixed, edited, and produced by me, Ross Cochran. Steve is available for corporate speaking gigs. He would love to MC your event, and occasionally, he's funny. Thank you for listening. Head to cochranshow.com for more.